We continue our story following Sagiri and her group as they travel through this hellish island. So far, Sagiri, Senta, Yuzuriha, and Hoko have not encountered any formidable enemies, unlike the other survivors on the island. But soon they reach the gates of Horai and they get welcomed in. Waiting for them is a stranger with red hair and a smile ready for them. His name is Mudan, and he's one of the Tensen Hoko talked about. As a welcome, he slices Hoko's head off, surprising the rest. But no one is more scared than Yuzuriha. She can feel the immense power emanating from this dangerous man. As a kunoichi, her instincts tell her that her best chance for survival is to run away. However, Mudan easily grabs her. He knows that among the humans, she's the only one who possesses a distinct amount of Tao. Perhaps if he performs Botchu Jutsu with her, then she can train her Tao more efficiently. Sagiri can also sense the stranger's power. But even if she's shaking with fear and uncertainty, she still tells him to let Yuzuriha go. Amused, Mudan calls his 5 Kyoshis. He lets 2 of them grab Yuzuriha, and then he sits on the third one who's in a prostrate position. There's no harm in having small talk with these insignificant humans. After all, it's not every day that he gets to talk with the humans he would consume later on. Mudan is forthcoming with information. He basically confirms Senta's theory about the island being man-made and luring humans in. Hoko's people were the first humans the Tensen experimented on. They only created a fake religion to keep some sort of rule on the island. And the elixir of life, it doesn't exist. However, they do need humans to create their Tan so they can maintain their youth and keep training their Tao. Knowing that there's nothing left on the island for them but their survival, Yuzuriha escapes from the Kyoshi and beheads Mudan. Then she urges Sagiri and Senta to run. Sagiri picks up Hoko's head. But Yuzuriha is underestimating her enemy. The 3 of them haven't even left the place when Mudan starts regenerating his body. He's still playful and relaxed, as if his body parts aren't held by various vines. He goes to Sagiri and pushes her away using distant strike. Mudan is serious about taking in the kunoichi. Senta draws his sword and attempts to fight the Tensen. Unfortunately, his strength relies more on books and information rather than sword fighting. Yuzuriha has no choice but to fight openly. Before, she makes sure that no one can observe how she fights and the techniques she uses. It's part of her training as a shinobi. But they're trapped on this island, and they're facing down a potential god, or a monster. Survival must come first above all else. She consumes poison from one of her bamboo vials. Yuzuriha can control substances through her metabolism, allowing her body to process the poison and secrete it as a clear slime, which she can manipulate at will. She ties the Tensen using her slime, then cuts him into infinite pieces. And yet it doesn't do any significant damage to Mudan. He simply regenerates. He's even impressed that the kunoichi can manipulate her Tao, although she may have not known it. Senta attacks him, but Mudan simply throws him away. Sagiri recovers, although her mouth is bleeding. She asks Hoko for any help or hints on how to defeat the Tensen. Thinking about Mei, he eventually reveals that the only way to finish a Tensen is to cut their tanden, located in their lower abdomen. He also reveals that one must use Tao to properly injure a Tensen. Using this information, Sagiri doesn't waste much time and lunges toward Mudan. She throws her sword toward his abdomen to serve as a distraction. She gets close to him, grabs her sword and makes an upward slash. Mudan avoids it, but he sustains an injury on his face that doesn't regenerate. Yuzuriha and Senta see this and are amazed by Sagiri. Mudan shifts his attention to the Asamon. He admits that he didn't see her Tao before, but now he understands that she must have the skills to make her Tao bigger at will. Well then, time to get more serious, Mudan says. He fights Sagiri, Yuzuriha and Senta at the same time. The 3 are working flawlessly with Yuzuriha and Senta aiming to trap the Tensen so that Sagiri can end him. They manage to cut all his limbs, but then he floats up in the air. Mudan regenerates her body and changes into a woman. It seems like the Tensen can fly after manipulating the Tao around them. She creates bubbles around her and aims at them like bullets. Sagiri and Yuzuriha manage to run and hide. Sagiri realizes she's getting easily tired after using the new breathing technique. She doesn't know yet that she's using her Tao, but she understands that it's taking too much of her energy. Yuzuriha says they shouldn't give up now. The Tensen is obviously avoiding Sagiri's attacks. So if they manage to trap the Tensen, Sagiri must not waste that chance to cut her. The kunoichi runs and lassos Mudan using her slime, all while taking in the bubble bullets aimed at her. Then she pulls her down. Mudan returns to being a man, but before he knows it, Senta grabs him from behind and pierces him with his sword. Without ado, Sagiri uses all her energy to cut Mudan in half. This time, the Tensen doesn't move, and there's no sign of regeneration. The three of them decide to take a break after this intense fight. Sagiri picks up Hoko's head. The tree says he doesn't feel like dying soon, but he's more concerned about Mei's welfare. While resting, Sagiri asks Senta about his feelings for Yuzuriha. It's obvious that he has great admiration for her. Senta blushes and clarifies that it's more like being impressed with her sense of freedom. Senta has always wanted to be an artist. But growing up in the Yamada clan, every boy is expected to be an executioner. He tried his best to train, and fortunately, he rose to the 5th rank among the Asimans. But in his heart, he knows that happiness lies within ink and paper. Sagiri appreciates this honesty from him. Yuzuriha interrupts their discussion to point out a bush of blooming flowers growing right where they killed the Tensen. None of them knows what it is. But before they can do anything, a vine shoots out and aims for Yuzuriha. She would have been hit if Senta didn't push her. He got hit instead. Inside Senta's mind, he sees Yuzuriha kicking away the heads he'd cut from the criminals. She's prancing freely with an umbrella to match her carefree attitude. It's like she's kicking away all the responsibilities that he never liked to do. He sits a few feet away from her, content to draw her from afar. This seems real for Senta, but in truth he's only seeing hallucinations brought upon by the flowers that have bloomed from his body. His companions are in no better state either, because rising from the flower bush is a monster they've never seen before. A giant flower blossoms. Instead of having one, it has 2 styles, each one gender of Mudan, connected to one head by their necks. Sagiri is losing hope. Even Yuzuriha is valiantly trying to be brave. Multiple veins shoot out to strike them. In the nick of time, someone cuts them before they hit the 2 girls. Shion has arrived along with Nurugai. The girls immediately pull the flowering center out of the battlefield, leaving Shion to deal with Mudan's Kishikai form. Nurugai cuts the flowers from Senta's body. They all know it's too late for him. The least they can do is ease his suffering as he slowly transcends to the next life. Meanwhile, Shion studies his enemy. There's no doubt the monster has the same waves as the one who finished Tenza. He's still mourning the loss of his student, who has become like a brother to him. If finishing this monster can alleviate his feelings of revenge, then he'll go all the way to destroy it. He kicks the monster away, but not without repercussions. Even through scratches and cuts, Mudan can plant deadly flowers. And that's what he does to Shion. With no choice, he cuts the flowers, making him heavily bleed. Sagiri sees this and wants to help her senior. But she has depleted most of her energy, as well as Yuzuriha. Nurugai jumps onto the kunoichi's back and hugs her. Nothing seemingly happens. When the kid hugs Sagiri, that's when the latter feels some form of energy transfer. Nurugai explains that Shion had found out she has this ability to transfer energy waves or Tao to other people. But Nurugai herself is not familiar with it, so she must be careful. Yuzuriha doesn't want to join the battle, so as a compromise, she covers the other girls with her slime as protection from the deadly flowers. With that, Sagiri and Nurugai run back to help Shion. Sagiri informs Shion about the tanden that should be cut to defeat the Tensen. He takes this advice. What follows is a fierce 3 versus 1 battle. Sagiri and Nurugai cut as many vines as possible, while Shion will attack it from behind. Through their sheer determination and battle prowess, the 3 of them overpower Mudan. All vines are cut cleanly, and they take time to regenerate. Shion is even proud of his junior and her impressive progress over the short amount of time they've been on the island. But they must not underestimate their enemy. Mudan is a Tensen that's lived for 1,000 years. It will take more than a miracle to bring him down, adding to their enemy's formidable strength as obstacles are their wounds. Shion keeps on losing blood. Sagiri's and Nurugai's energy are almost depleted. They must destroy the monster as quickly as possible, or else it will consume all of them. Shion cuts its feet while Sagiri and Nurugai pin down its hands. Then Shion climbs onto the monster's petals and prepares to give the final blow. But he hesitates. If its weakness is really at the tanden, then he can't sense the energy flowing from there. The real weakness must be hiding somewhere. Vines are almost regenerated completely. Shion can't waste any more time. Just then, Senta comes in clutch to say that the weakest part is the ovule. It's the one part that provides the nutrients in any plant. Shion takes this in as he deflects the vines. Soon this monster will know how fleeting and heavy life can be. He cuts the ovule. Mudan can see that Shion has mastered the balance between life and death, the perfect yin and yang. In a way, he's grateful for this death. After 1,000 years of living, this must be like a rest to him. His blood spurts everywhere, which immediately turns to petals. The place instantly becomes a flower field as the Tensen leaves the living world. After the battle, they finally lay center to rest. Shion, Sagiri, who's carrying Hoko's head, Yuzuriha and Nurugai proceed further to find some shelter inside. They find an empty house that looks like a castle. They decide to spend the night there to recuperate from their injuries. There, they update themselves and discuss what has happened so far. Sagiri still thinks the elixir exists because Gabimaru strongly believes in it as well. After all, his village leader had shown it before. But Yuzuriha challenges this thought. It's a common practice for shinobi leaders to imprint their supernatural image on young shinobis, so it would be easier to train them. In addition, it doesn't make sense that Gabimaru will be allowed to have a wife at such a young age. It's possible that he must be under a form of deception, and that the concept of having a wife would be enough for him to follow suicidal orders. Village leaders must have a hold on their shinobis, more than instilling fear in them, so they can have overall control over them. Sagiri can't believe this possibility, but she must be realistic. She must find out the truth as soon as possible. But for now, she will hold on to the belief that Gabimaru will eventually return to his wife. Speaking of Gabimaru, he has lost his memories after the fight with the Dolshins. He's with Gantetsusai, Fuchi and Mei, but he doesn't recognize them. It could be that the overexertion of his Tao may have caused him to forget everything. But even with this, he feels like there's something he must return to, or someone. As he looks at the full moon, he decides to find the answers to the questions that fill him. Thank you so much for watching. This completes our story covering the first season of Hell's Paradise, so please, if you'd love more recaps in the meantime, stay tuned to the channel. See you in the next video.